You didn't fail. You didn't lose alignment. And life isn't punishing you. It's quietly preparing you. I know the weight of those moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. The plans you trusted begin to dissolve. People you leaned on slowly drift away, and the structures you built with so much effort begin to crumble in silence. At first, you try to convince yourself it's just a passing storm. Then comes the fear. Maybe I've done something wrong. Maybe I've lost my way. But what if nothing is broken? What if what looks like delay is actually a divine rearrangement? What if this is not the end, but a sacred recalibration? A preparation for the version of you that is finally ready to receive what you've been asking for. And everything in your life that doesn't resonate with that new frequency is being lovingly cleared out of the way. Here's the secret no one tells you about manifestation. When you shift even slightly into a new vibration, the quantum field begins to reassemble your reality around it. And that reassembly can look like chaos. It feels like moving backward. It feels like the vision is slipping away. But in truth, what's slipping is the outdated identity, the one that can't walk with you into your next timeline. The confusion, the discomfort, the sense of loss, these aren't punishments. They are proof that the field is rearranging itself to match the energy you've been calling in. That isn't misalignment. That's momentum. But momentum doesn't always feel good. It hurts to let go of what once felt safe. It aches to trust something invisible. It stings to step into the unknown, not yet knowing who you are becoming. It's disorienting because this isn't just about letting go of outcomes. It's about releasing entire blueprints of survival. The part of you that clung to control. The part that believed effort alone equaled worth. The part that thought stillness meant weakness. And that old part doesn't exit quietly. It resists. It negotiates. It clings. Not because it's evil, but because it's afraid. It was designed to protect you, not to help you thrive. But now, protection isn't what you need. What you need is trust. You're not stuck. You're suspended in a doorway between the self you've always been and the self you are becoming. That space feels uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. Your old mindset can't function here. Your old coping patterns don't apply here. And the universe knows that. So it waits. It waits for your energy to become coherent. Not just emotionally, but vibrational. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the frequency you actually carry. When that frequency is tangled with contradiction, with desperation hidden behind affirmations, or control masked as strategy, the field cannot deliver. That's why forcing rarely works. Because in the language of energy, forcing is resistance in disguise. You were never meant to push your way forward. You were meant to feel your way into harmony. And harmony doesn't come from rituals done perfectly. It comes from stillness. The kind of stillness that reveals where you're giving away your power, where you're doubting your worth, where you're postponing peace for some future moment. That's where preparation truly begins. Not on your vision board, not on your endless to-do list, but in the quiet space between your thoughts, in the breath that says, even if I can't see it yet, I trust something is already shifting. What if this isn't a setback at all? What if this is the exact moment your energy is settling into a new rhythm, a new reality? What if this is the clearing before the flowering, the pruning before the garden bursts into bloom? What if life isn't holding you back, but holding space for the truest version of you to emerge? The version that can carry the weight of the life you've been asking for without crumbling beneath it. That isn't a punishment. That isn't even a test. That's the universe showing trust. That's the field doing what it was designed to do, mirror your readiness. So no, you're not being denied. You're being positioned. You are being softened in the very places where fear made you rigid. You are being emptied of the noise that kept you chasing what was never yours to keep. You are being freed from the illusions that whispered you weren't ready, because now you are. I know this stage doesn't feel magical. It doesn't feel like alignment. It feels raw, uncertain, and lonely. But this uncomfortable in-between is sacred. It's the threshold of transformation. The moment your old story becomes too small, while your new story is still being written. It is the silence before the breakthrough, the pause before the leap. And it's here, in this tension, that your real strength begins to surface. Because when the field recognizes that you're no longer rushing to force alignment, but are instead willing to sit inside the space it's opening for you, it responds, not out of duty, but out of resonance. Slowly, reality begins to reshape itself around your new center, your new stillness, your new truth. So if things feel unstable right now, let them. If life feels heavy, slow, or unclear, trust it. That's not a sign of failure. That's a sign of becoming. The field is conscious. It listens. It calibrates to your next frequency. Something within you has already shifted, and reality is simply catching up. And here's what most people misunderstand. The universe doesn't throw tests at you to see if you're worthy. The quantum field does not grade you. It reflects you. It doesn't ask, "Are you strong enough?" It listens to your vibration and responds, "I hear you." Let me echo that. That echo isn't always instant. Sometimes it feels like things are getting worse before they get better. Not because you're failing, but because the old foundation is being dismantled. Your external world is always a few steps behind your internal state. So when you shift your emotional baseline, when you stop broadcasting fear, lack, and not enough, the field doesn't punish you. It pauses, it reorganizes, it clears space for the new frequency you've stepped into. And that pause, that recalibration, is what so many mistake for a test. But it isn't a test. It's the universe aligning with the signal you've finally begun to broadcast. Let's be clear, this isn't an exam. You're not being evaluated. You're being upgraded. And every upgrade comes with a clearing. Just as the body releases toxins during healing, your energy field releases what no longer belongs. Old patterns, worn-out identities, relationships, and even dreams that once defined you begin to loosen their grip. It's the space between letting go and receiving that unsettles most people. That emptiness feels unbearable, and the mind rushes to fill it with fear, with blame, with stories about being behind. But here's the truth. While the mind fears emptiness, the field treasures it. Because emptiness is possibility. Emptiness is signal without interference. Emptiness is the fertile ground where new realities are born. This is how quantum creation unfolds. Each time you send out a fresh vibration, you're declaring to the field what you're now available for. And if your outer life doesn't yet reflect that vibration, the field begins to dismantle what doesn't resonate. But dismantling is not destruction, it's alignment. You're not losing what is meant for you. You're shedding what can't come with you. Yes, it often looks chaotic, because anything you once clung to for identity, safety, or validation is now being questioned by your new frequency. This is why manifestation so often comes after the storm, not before it. The storm shakes loose what you wouldn't release on your own. It pulls you out of old loops, familiar jobs, tired relationships, even entire cities or timelines. Not as punishment, but as preparation. To create space, to refine your signal, to purify your vibration, because when your signal is clean, the field doesn't hesitate. It responds. But until coherence settles in you, until your being becomes steadier than your mind, the field waits. It waits not because it's cruel, but because it's devoted. It waits for your energy to stop flickering between doubt and trust. It waits for the moment you stop forcing, stop pretending, and finally settle into truth. Because the field doesn't collapse possibilities based on words. It collapses them based on vibration. And vibration doesn't lie. So when life begins to unravel, don't ask, why me? Instead, ask, what space is being created here? Don't assume rejection, assume redirection. Don't fight the silence, listen inside of it. Because silence between realities is where timelines are rearranged. If you can hold your center in that silence, if you can remain coherent while the old uncoils around you, the field has no choice but to meet you in your new frequency. As Dr. Joe Dispenza reminds us, the quantum field is not a passive mirror. It's alive. It senses your fear. It senses your trust. It knows when you're pretending, and it knows when you've truly surrendered. And here's the paradox. Manifestation doesn't unfold when you desperately need the outcome. It begins the moment you no longer require it to feel whole. When you stop grasping and start anchoring, reality bends. But anchoring requires presence. It requires stillness. It requires the courage to sit in the in-between and say, even here I trust. Because in stillness, there is clarity. In clarity, there is access. And in access, manifestation shifts from something you chase into something you naturally embody. So no, you're not failing just because things are falling away. You're succeeding at a level your ego cannot measure. You're becoming attuned to the life you once could only imagine. You're becoming the version of yourself who no longer wonders if it's working, because you already feel it moving through your body. And that's the moment the field takes you seriously. That's when it stops responding to your rituals and starts responding to your very being. And that being, your truest self, isn't trying to force the future. It's calmly inviting it. Let that sink in. In the next minutes, we'll explore how the pause between old and new is not empty at all, but filled with quantum activity. And how learning to trust the slowness is the very thing that unlocks the next version of you. Ready to go deeper? There is a sacred space between letting go and receiving, a strange, quiet pause where nothing seems to move. You've done the inner work, you've felt the shift, you've surrendered fully, and then suddenly there is silence. No signs, no proof, no evidence, just emptiness. Yet this emptiness is not a mistake, and it is certainly not a delay. It is the recalibration zone, the in-between, where timelines are rewritten not by what you do, but by who you are becoming. Most people misinterpret this space as failure. They panic, they retreat, they try harder. They dig up the seed to check if it has sprouted, unaware that this impatience disturbs the very process they long for. The quantum field doesn't respond to urgency or desperation. It responds to coherence, and coherence requires stillness. That is why this invisible, unglamorous stretch is the most important part of the process. It reveals whether you truly trust your frequency or if you are only performing it. You are not stuck. You are suspended, floating between two timelines. The old one is fading, and you can feel it slipping away. The new one is not fully here, but you can sense its pull. Deep down, something within you already knows that this space is sacred. This is the zone where the subconscious is rewired, where old emotional imprints dissolve, where your system stabilizes into a new identity before reality mirrors it back. And yes, it feels unsettling, like being no one, like not knowing who you are or what comes next. That strangeness is not failure. It is growth. It is the sensation of identity shifting. You are no longer who you once were, but you are not yet who you are becoming. This is spiritual maturity in its truest form. It does not arrive with fireworks or sudden revelations. It comes through integration, through consistency, through staying present with the unfamiliar. The field is aware of this process, not with eyes, but with resonance. It listens to the quality of your silence. It senses the shape of your vibration when you are no longer pushing. Because when the striving stops, your authentic frequency emerges, and that is the vibration that reshapes reality. Neville Goddard called this space the Sabbath, the time of rest between assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and witnessing its manifestation. He said, "If you persist in the assumption, it will harden into fact." But persistence is not force. It is not repetition for the sake of convincing yourself. Persistence is vibrational stability. It is the moment you stop needing proof and instead become the proof. It is the point where you no longer look outside for confirmation, because every cell in your body already carries the knowing. So if you feel like nothing is happening, take heart. It means something deeper is aligning. The surface may appear quiet, but beneath it, the foundation is shifting. Your entire system is learning how to embody the new without collapsing back into the old. Your timeline is being recalculated in real time, and your only task in this delicate stage is to remain coherent. But coherence doesn't mean perfection, it means honesty. Can you stay present without running from discomfort? Can you hold the frequency of trust, even when there is no evidence to reassure you? Can you allow the timeline to crystallize around your being instead of chasing it with effort and force? This is the quantum pause. It is the space where the field waits for you, not to punish you, but to give you time to stabilize. It waits for your signal to become steady enough to shape reality. And here's the paradox. Consistency isn't measured by intensity, but by ease. It is reflected in your peace, in how gently you carry the vision, in how little you need to grasp it. The tighter you cling, the louder you tell the field, "I don't believe this is real," and the field will always reflect that belief. Not your words, but your vibration. So release the need to grasp. Instead, begin to anchor. Begin to live from the vibration of already. Walk as though it is done, not to convince the field, but to convince yourself. Because the moment your nervous system feels safe to receive, the field responds without hesitation. This is where the breakthrough hides, not in endless doing, but in pure being, not in the outcome itself, but in your readiness to hold it. And that readiness is not proven through rituals, affirmations, or mantras. It's proven through emotional neutrality. When the outcome no longer defines your value, that's when it arrives. When joy is no longer delayed until the future but accessed in the present, that's when manifestation takes form. When you stop preparing for disappointment and start living from alignment, the new timeline clicks into place. The quantum is never slow, it is exact. You are simply stabilizing into precision. So let the process take the time it needs. Allow the unseen to rearrange. Let the silence do its work. Let this uncomfortable in-between become your training ground for trust. Because trust is the most magnetic energy there is. It collapses reality faster than force ever could. By now, you may have noticed the pattern. The harder you try to push change, the more resistance builds. The more you chase, the faster it seems to slip away. This is not failure. It is feedback. The quantum doesn't respond to pressure. It moves with resonance. And resonance emerges not from urgency, but from surrender. But surrender is often misunderstood. It is not giving up. It is not passivity. True surrender is choosing coherence over control. It is the quiet decision to trust the timeline your soul has already selected, even when your mind can't yet see it. That is real power, and that power is what steadies your field. So how do you cooperate with the quantum when everything feels misaligned? First, stop labeling discomfort as danger. Most of what you call fear is not fear at all. It's unfamiliarity. You're not terrified because life is breaking. You're unsettled because life is shifting. You've started broadcasting a new frequency, and your nervous system is still learning how to hold it. That's not sabotage. It's integration. Give it permission to unfold. Second, stop asking, "How do I fix this?" and instead ask, "What part of me is resisting this?" Because trying to fix what the field is already reorganizing only creates interference in your signal. The more you meddle, the longer it takes. But when you breathe deeply, soften your grip, and release control, you become magnetic. Not because you're doing more, but because you're finally still enough to receive. This is where Abraham Hicks offers a profound truth. You cannot be in receiving mode and resisting mode at the same time. Receiving is not about intensity, it's about allowance. And allowing is not passive, it's deeply intentional. It's the choice to trust that alignment is working even before you can see its evidence. And trust is not something you wait to feel. It's a frequency you choose, especially in the moments that test you the most. Because that's when the universe leans in and listens. Not when you perform trust, but when you embody it. So what does this actually look like in practice? It looks like waking each morning and shifting the question from "what's missing" to "what am I radiating?" It looks like observing your thoughts without clinging to every one of them. It looks like noticing the tightness in your chest and softening into it, rather than spiraling. It looks like holding the same steady energy whether the manifestation has appeared yet or not. Because the quantum field is not only interested in giving you what you want, it's shaping who you become while you wait. This is the preparation. This is the training. Not punishment, precision. Your nervous system is the antenna. The clearer the signal, the sharper the response. That's why life often unravels before it comes together. Because you cannot manifest from a battlefield within. The field won't collapse a new reality around an old vibration. It will wait, patiently, precisely, until you stop broadcasting from memory and start vibrating from the present. And the present moment is where your future is born. So here's a simple shift. Instead of asking for proof, become the proof. Instead of needing a sign to feel aligned, let your alignment be the sign. Instead of waiting to feel safe after the outcome, create the safety within you now. You don't need more rituals. You need more stillness. You don't need endless affirmations. You need permission to feel how much you've already transformed. You don't need to chase anything. You need to stop resisting who you are becoming, because that version of you is already aligned. You are simply learning to meet them in the field without fear. Take a breath. Let this truth settle. If your path feels unfamiliar, it means you've stepped beyond the old map, and that is exactly where new realities emerge. If the silence feels overwhelming, that's a good sign. It means the field is listening. And if these words resonate, if they touch the part of you that's been quietly holding on, mark this moment. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Declare, I trust the process. Not because it is perfect, but because it is precise. Not because it is punishment, but because it is preparation. And as we close this journey together, remember this. You are not here to merely survive your life. You are here to embody the frequency you were born to carry, the one the universe has been preparing you for all along. By now, something inside you has shifted. Not because I gave you a new answer, but because you remembered an old truth. You are not being tested. You are being trusted. The universe isn't watching to see if you fail. It is rearranging your reality so that you can step fully into who you are becoming. Yes, that rearrangement sometimes feels like resistance, like silence, even like pain. But it is not punishment. It is preparation. You asked for alignment, and the field is clearing everything that cannot hold it. That's why it feels heavy at times. Not because you are broken, but because you are shedding what was never truly yours. The masks, the timelines, the expectations you long ago outgrew. The field is exact. It only responds to truth. And when your truth becomes louder than your fear, the field moves. That movement is not failure. It is activation. Activation is the slow, steady rise of coherence within you. It is your nervous system learning a new rhythm. It is the subtle recalibration into a version of yourself that no longer has to perform, but simply be. That is the shift. That is the preparation. Because manifestation is never about deserving, it is always about readiness. The universe has already said yes. It's simply waiting for your frequency to clear, for your heart to soften, for your energy to stabilize. That clarity isn't in your words. It's in your being. It's in your willingness to trust instead of grasp, to allow instead of force, to anchor instead of prove. So release the question, when will it happen? And instead live from the knowing, it is already unfolding. Because when you embody that truth, timelines collapse faster than any ritual could. You were never meant to push your way into alignment. You were meant to remember it. You were never meant to earn your manifestations. You were meant to resonate with them. And resonance is who you already are. And sometimes that resonance takes longer than you expect. Sometimes it requires breaking apart. Sometimes it means sitting in the silence far longer than you ever thought you could. But on the other side of that stillness lies something extraordinary: stability. Not the fleeting spikes of emotion that leave you drained, but the deep, steady alignment that anchors you in truth. The kind of alignment that doesn't demand attention because it already knows. The kind of coherence that doesn't beg for proof because it has become the evidence itself. And when you become the evidence, reality bends. The field responds. Life begins to move again. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped forcing. You created space. You breathed. You stayed present. You softened instead of resisting. You surrendered without giving up. You trusted. And that trust became your signal. A signal so pure that the universe could not ignore it. A signal so magnetic that timelines had no choice but to shift. A signal so precise that what once seemed distant became inevitable. That is not tomorrow. That is not someday when you're more ready. that is happening now. So if this message touched the part of you that has been quietly holding on, if you felt even the faintest flicker of peace, of clarity, of remembering, let this be your sign to keep moving forward. Let this be the moment you stop chasing and finally allow yourself to receive. Let this be the moment you choose, not to do more, but to trust more deeply. Let this be the moment you anchor into the knowing. I am not lost. I am being aligned. And if this space, this frequency, felt like home, if it reminded you of who you truly are beneath the noise, then I invite you to stay on this journey. Because nothing about this message reached you by accident. It found you because it was meant to. That is not coincidence. That is coherence. This is your season of preparation. This is your season of alignment. And the universe has already begun rearranging itself to meet you where you are. Full